Welcome to God with George Ortega. This is episode number 50. I'm recording it on Thursday, December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2020 at 5:56 p.m. Eastern Time. And just briefly, Josh and I spoke, and yeah, we're going to go back to meeting, working together to further his goals of creating a new religion. And I'm going to continue doing this series on my own. But he and I, we work well together. And so I expect that we will have some accomplishments from this work. And we've just started. So, all right. So let's focus on God. And I got to tell you, I've been distracted from God recently. Partly, I've been playing a lot of bass guitar, which has been going great and all. The holidays, just tend to distract me from whatever I'm doing. It's hard for me to get work done on the holidays. But yeah, this, I mean, one reason I'm looking forward to doing these episodes now on my own is I wanna I wanna see where this vision, goes. I mean, initially when I thought of doing the series, my intention was to do it alone. Then I thought, well, it's always a lot of fun to do a show with a co-host. I've done several with different co-hosts, and but this one is a bit different in that this one, I'm doing this to a great extent, not just for the audience, but for myself. Basically, the goal is for me to cultivate a much deeper, meaningful, productive, more meaningful, productive relationship with God. Um, and it's hard. It's hard to focus on God a lot. I mean, again, this is why I'm glad I'm doing these episodes. These episodes for 28 minutes, 5 times a week, Sunday through Thursday, each week. I devote to this, and also, a very good consequence of that is that I also, at other times, if I'm taking a walk, if I've just done a show, an episode, thinking about God, talking with God, I'll often take that, and like I find myself on the walk, not when people are around or whatever, but like if I'm walking, alone, I'll talk to God, and that so part of the purpose of this series is not just for me, but for people in general to cultivate a strong relationship to God. And I mean, there are different reasons. This isn't a novel idea. I mean, religion just basically promotes um, this way of being, way of life. Um, from my perspective, it has another kind of goal. And I've talked about this before. Josh and I have talked about this a lot. The idea is that, well, to the extent that we do not have this God consciousness, this awareness of God, an awareness of God's role in our lives, God's place in our world, our reality, to the extent that we fail to sufficiently have this consciousness, we are very, very, very literally, you know, essentially deluded about, a very fundamental aspect of life. And what I'm referring to, I've mentioned this before, that we think that what we do is up to us, that we have a free will and we can do anything we want. That now naturally, I mean, our experience should tell us that no, we don't have a free will because we can't do anything we want. We can't think and feel and say anything we want when we want to, and that's the key. Sometimes, for example, I've done work on happiness. I've taught many people to become happy over the last 2 decades, and so it's not like we can't change, and it's that whether we change and to the extent we change and how we change is not fundamentally up to us. So And that's where God comes in, because like this understanding is standard in science, at least in good science. There's a lot of bad scientists out there. Our top scientists, Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Sigmund Freud, Albert Einstein. I don't think there are other scientists that are in their league, and they all rejected this notion of free will. Right, but the problem is, like, they hardly said anything about it. They have a few statements, that's about it. But the purpose of this initiative, this series, and my work, this my work both with free will and with God, is to understand it's not just that we don't have a free will. It's not just that there are laws of nature, the cause and effect, genetics, environment. There are many scientific ways of explaining why we don't have a free will. But ultimately, you bring all those reasons together, or you see them as one, and you come to the conclusion, well, everything is God's will. God is controlling the laws of nature. God created the laws of nature. God is controlling our nature and our nurture. So again, that, I think that this is revolutionary. I mean, like, Abraham introduced our world to God. Okay, and that was a good thing. That was a very good thing to do, because I think we've benefited immeasurably from that, because to a great extent, a connection with God is a connection to morality, to knowing what's right to do and what's not right to do. And then to develop a culture, a system, religion, a belief that involves getting better at that, getting better at knowing right from wrong and doing right. So this connection with God, seeing God as really the only being, the being who is in control of everything we do, it's not just about seeing things correctly, accurately, perceiving reality accurately. It's also about becoming better people. Those of us, 80, 90% of us here in the United States believe in God or a higher power. And we know, we've integrated this understanding that, like, well, we do something wrong, we you know lie, steal, cheat, whatever we do, or we're thinking of doing, not the doing, but we're thinking of doing something wrong. We have this understanding that, well, God is going to know, others may not know per se, but God would. And so, like, just this knowledge that God is there, not just to love us, because we're blessed in so many ways, but to judge us, when we're, like, contemplating doing something that isn't right, remembering God's omniscience, and God's omnipotence, that God knows everything, and then God is in control of everything. That, and God's justice, that kind of helps us to, in our battle against the evil inclination, that helps us to be better people. So all right, so, like, I've just been doing this show for a few minutes, and already I'm feeling this shift in consciousness, that comes from thinking about God, from talking about God. Because the next thing that came to mind is that it's not just that God knows everything, but again, God is, well, again, the irony, there's a lot of humor in this, basically, and this is surreal, because this is God's world, and God runs it however God wants. And I like to refer to God as a she, because we've been referring to God as a he for, like, several millennia. And I think there's a utility and some balance there, and just, you know, coming to better understand the feminine nature of God in Judaism, the Shekinah, through this grammatical device of you know, the pronoun she. So so yes, like, I mean, what's funny is that like God will make us, and this God will make us consider doing something wrong. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, you know, little wrongs, whatever. And and then God, at her discretion, will either talk us out of it, you know, remind us that she's going to judge us and punish us if we fall short, or she will allow us to resist the temptation. I got like one of my eyes is red. I just took a shower before this, um, but whatever. Um, so anyway, so and that's humorous. I mean, like that's, you know, it's surreal. You know, in other words, like yes, God. There's a story. There's a joke that I heard many years ago, back in the '80s, when I was like, I was Orthodox Jewish for a while, going to the Hebrew Institute here in White Plains, and somebody told me this joke is like this guy goes out on a hike, and he falls over a cliff, and well, actually, he's telling his friends this. You know, he's saying, you know, so I was on this hike, and I fell off this cliff, and fortunately, God saved me because, like, you know, right under the cliff there was this branch that I hung on to. You know, I grabbed myself so I didn't fall. It must have been like 3,000 feet below, whatever. But um, and so like I was able to like grab that branch and just like, you know, just pull myself back up to the over the cliff. And so, like, you know, God is so great. This guy's telling his friends, God is so amazingly merciful and kind and wonderful for having saved my life. All right. And so, like, one of his, you know, his friends says to him, God is so great, huh? Well, who do you think threw you off the cliff? And it's, I mean, like, on the one hand, it's true. On the one hand, it's true. God did throw him off the cliff, maybe because that was God's way of helping this person understand that God is very kind, that God saves us all the time. So that's the message, and that's what obviously we want to hang on to, you know, from a certain perspective. But it is surreally humorous that not only does God save us in situations like that, God puts us in those situations. Um, yeah, again, I'm curious about where this episode, again, now doing it solo, is going to lead, because you know, like this has been a progression, and you know, this is all about the coronavirus, really. You know, like in March, I thought it'd be a good idea. God made me. God made me do a television series. I gotta get some water. Hold on, I gotta pause this recording and pause my clock. Hold on. All right, we're back. I'm back. So, so yeah, I'm interested to see where the series will go. God had me do this 5 days a week. It was called Weekday Coronavirus Driven Mind Stuff, where I just talked about whatever was on my mind, just trying to make sense of what was going on, you know, the shutdown and all this, trying to figure things out, you know, sociologically, economically, whatever. And then from that, you know, God had me understand that, wait a minute, you know, like, fine, we're in this and we've got to deal with it as we're in it, but there will come a time where the distancing will be lifted, the masks will no longer be necessary, and we will return to the lives that we we will cherish so much more because of this. But what occurred to me doing this series is that that's not the end of it. In other words, as I basically God then had me no God had me first reach the understanding that that there's only really one way to prevent future pandemics, one surefire way, one responsible way, and that's to literally completely end factory farming, the farming of all animals. It would be ideal. Transitioning to a new technology called cellular agriculture that had its first proof of concept in 2013, and now Singapore has just allowed the first um, cell-based cell ag. It has different names: clean meat, cultured meat products to be sold, and consumed. So this is major. But anyway, so like God had me do that, 60 episodes. And incidentally, this series is now being presented. It started last week on Manhattan's cable TV station, so if people who live in Manhattan can watch this on their TVs. Um, and so I did, 61 episodes, I think, of that. And then God had, again, this is all God leading me to, again, from talking about what's going on in with the distancing, all this, to understanding that we need a way to prevent future pandemics. And then after 61 episodes of that, God had me realize, well, wait a minute, I've been talking to people. And I've got like about 4 decades of trying to talk to people about various things that we should do, we shouldn't do, and it has a limited utility. People don't listen. What can I tell you? And so the idea that God put in my mind was to do a series exclusively about God. The personal purpose for me was to help me ask God for help with this. Again, like presenting the material, 61 episodes to the audience, and I sent emails to like news organizations, several thousand, I think. And like, so the word, it's not like the idea isn't known, it's not like, it's more than an idea. It's not like this threat isn't known, that basically these pandemics, the next one's just a matter of time unless we make this change. So yeah, so like, people know this, or at least enough people, journalists. Um, but I was looking through the news and nothing really was reported. You'd see a few articles about, there's a few animal rights organizations that are on top of this saying, hey, we need to end factory farming. But for the most part, especially the major media, they just don't cover it. Um, and naturally, I don't want to upset the livestock industry. It's worth $1.3 trillion. And that's actually the problem with our politics. It's like, fine, this is a major industry, but the welfare of the planet, of civilization, of future generations is more important, period. So, so, so basically, the series is about getting me to become better at asking God for help with this. I talk to God a lot. I'm not sure I pray to God all that much. In other words, and what I say is, I I don't I don't think I ask God as much as I could and should. I remember like before I started studying Judaism, I kind of like, for some reason and I was born Jewish, but I was raised Christian, Episcopalian. I think it was a good, religious education. But for some reason I had this idea, and I don't know where I got it. God put it in my mind, but I don't know why. That we really shouldn't ask God for much or anything, because that's like asking God for something is kind of like being displeased with the way things are. And so like So, then in Judaism, I started reading some classic Jewish texts, Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, the Musar works, and they presented the idea. Well, actually, you ask God for everything, ask God for anything. You know, for example, yeah, I want to take a walk later. Ask God that I enjoy the walk. And then so like not even that, but yes, no, just so I'm bringing this up because like this series for me is to a great extent about getting better at asking God to to make us better people. We have more than abundant natural, economic, technological resources to never have a pandemic again, to overcome this pandemic completely, to far more than that, to create a really blissful, virtuous world for everyone. We have the means. We have more than enough money, more than enough tools, technological, educational, everything. And what's lacking is really the leadership. I mean, I was going to say the will, but the will comes from the leadership. Our leaders today, there's something wrong with our politics. These politicians are focused on winning their next election, and that is such a huge conflict of interest because that priority that they place upon themselves, that they give themselves, prevents them from addressing climate change, from doing what we should be doing, even now for the pandemic. So, so I guess, what I'm trying to ask God to do is either or both, to get our leaders to understand they have to become much better people. They have to stop just thinking about the short term, about their own personal interests, start thinking about civilization, and or they have to have enough of us understand this so we no longer tolerate politicians that refuse to do the right thing. So and it's not just all right. So that's kind of like within the political realm, but more so, in my personal life, I like doing good. Doing good feels very good to me. I have a kind of a temperament where to try to help the world become better, to help people become happier, that makes me very, very happy. And I've had some success in various endeavors that I've achieved, but I can certainly improve. Especially again, like well, what I want to work on is this God consciousness, and I've got to do this. Fortunately, God had me last Yom Kippur, after 32 years of being away from congregations, attend a Yom Kippur service at Bet Am Shalom here in White Plains, and then I started attending classes, Torah classes and Talmud classes there, and in Kol Ami, the Reform Synagogue and Temple Israel that I eventually joined. And so basically, this immersion in congregational religion, congregational Judaism, meeting with people. A lot of it has been on Zoom for months, but it does what I'm trying to do with this series. Um, and so like what I want this series to do is amplify that. In other words, like um, I tend to not do the daily prayers. I don't disagree with them. Part of it is like, if part, yeah, all the synagogues, even the Reform, I guess, um, they have a way of like, I don't get this at all, but apparently works to a certain extent. But these services are read in Hebrew, and nobody knows Hebrew. I mean, the rabbis know Hebrew. Maybe a handful of people who aren't rabbis know the Hebrew, but nobody else does. So like, I just attending a service where whoever is reading the prayers is reading the Hebrew and nobody understands, again, very few. I've a strong, very strong resistance to that. All right, so that explains, but I'm going to work around that. I'm going to like, the answer to that is like, well, let them say, I can't understand, I know a few Hebrew words fine, but I can't follow the prayers as they're said. So like, while they're saying whatever they're saying, I'll just open up my prayer book and follow along in English, and naturally you can't keep track because like you got to know Hebrew to know where they are and stuff, whatever. But that's a goal, so like, and again, this is what congregational religion does, apart from, in addition to, you know, filling one's life with very good people, with people who are really invested in knowing right from wrong and in doing right. That's priceless. And so, but yeah, so like this series is in part about helping me strengthen my God consciousness, not so I'm talking to God on my own more and being better, but also so I'm working with other people, who are trying to do the same thing. And religion has to evolve. There's certain things, like for example, almost everybody who's religious believes in free will. God herself says to Isaiah, um, chapter 45:7, maybe, I don't know. I create light, I create darkness, I create good, I create evil. And that's the thing, because like people don't, I mean, and people don't want to accept that God's will is the only will because of that. But I mean, hey, we die, we accept that we die, we accept that, that this world is 14 billion years old almost, and after that, who knows what happens. So I think, but all right, we've got about a minute left. Yeah, no, this under so religion has to evolve, and understanding that God is sovereign, I think personally would make this world much, much better. So hopefully that's a part of it. All right, so I hope you had I hope you're having a great New Year's Day. You're seeing this on January 1st, 2021, finally, and should be a good year. We'll be, everybody hopefully be vaccinated by the summer at latest, I would imagine, here in the United States, I guess, but hopefully throughout the world. Um, and all right, so anyway, I'm glad I did this. I will be back again with episode number 51, God willing, that I'll record, God willing, on Sunday. So again, Happy New Year's, and I'll see you soon. Thanks.